A very good afternoon, a very good morning, a very good evening to all of you who are joining us today. For many of you, it's a happy Sabbath. For some of our friends in Australia, you've begun the new week, or in that part of the world. But thank you so much for joining us for an hour with Treasury. We have a great program today. We have some great guests and friends that are going to be joining us today. Please be sure to stick with us throughout the hour. Before I introduce our guests this afternoon for us here in Zimbabwe, morning for where they are, I have two things that I need to do, just two quick housekeeping issues that I need to do. The first one actually is to appreciate you all. In the comments section, I'm kindly asking you to just write a comment and tell us where you are viewing us from. Just a quick comment will take a few seconds to acknowledge where you are. Try to put some of you on screen, some of your comments on screen. Just type in the comment section, tell us where you are viewing us from, where you're joining us from, and that will give us a good sense of the people we have joining us this day. And the other thing I want to do is to acknowledge our church treasurer of the month in our territory, which is the Zimbabwe West Union Conference. That is Sister Shailene Mpofu. She's from the Parklands Kumalo SDA Church. We wish to honor this team, Sister Shailene and the team that she leads. She and her team did a great job during the lockdown that we had early on in the year. It was very difficult for the Treasury work to proceed, but these are some of our unsung heroes who came up with innovative ideas, sometimes visiting our members with point-of-sale machines to make it easy for them to swipe their tithes and offerings, sometimes making their homes available for people to come and actually, swipe their cards. They were not taking cash, but making sure that the work continues in spite of the challenging environment that we have this year. So we want to honor Sister Shailene Mpofu. Some of you will have seen her on the Facebook page. We honored her on our Facebook page, but we wanted to do it for the month of November and ask that the Lord continues to bless your efforts and multiply the spirit in which you are working with absolutely no pay, purely as volunteers working for the Master. So thank you so much for that. And with that, we'll dive straight into our discussion for today. I'll just bring up my guests one by one and introduce them. The first one is Elder George Egwakwe. He is one of the associate treasurers at the General Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. He will tell us more about himself. And we also have Elder Tim Aka, a native of Canada, but currently residing in the United States. Also joining us today is Elder Muchula. Elder Aka is an associate treasurer of the Seventh-day Adventists at the General Conference, and he is also the director of investments. So he'll tell us more what that means. And Elder Muchula is the financial officer at our Pretoria regional office. That is the SID, Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division. Thank you so much, elders, for joining us tonight, where for some people and this afternoon for where we are, and good morning to you because it's very early in Washington, D.C. or the Maryland area where you are. Thank you so much. And maybe before I let you speak, some of you may not actually know that Elders Aka and Egwakwe are not new to this part of the world. This is a picture, I think it was taken around about 2017. We were in Masvingo. You can see some water in the background there. That's Lake Kyle. close to Masvingo. It's got a new name. I've just forgotten what the new name is, but it's very close to Masvingo. So they were there to attend one of our capacity building seminars that we're having a few years ago. So I think that was Elder Aka's first trip to Zimbabwe, if I'm not mistaken. But
That's
yeah,
right.
it was great to have them then. And you can see Elder Ntani, our old CFO at the SID, also with us. And Elder Aka came, I think, again in 2018. He conducted he gave some presentations at one of our Treasury meetings in Bulawayo. So these gentlemen are familiar with our territory, and it's always good to have them with us, and welcome again. Before we start, maybe just to acknowledge some of the people who are watching with us. I'm seeing Senior Moyo watching from Pumula East, Pumula South. We've got Tich Tsodzo in North End, which is in Bulawayo. We have Lista Masugu in Byte Bridge, that's in the south. Ngwenya in, where is it? Here in Bulawayo, Cape Town. We've got Alson Bebe. Who else have we got? Precious Ngwenya Mpofu in suburbs, not too far from us. And one of our senior urologists in the city, Dr. Mishawarima. So yeah, we've got a good crowd. We hope we'll have a good time together, and let's get going. So I'll start with Elder Muchula, who is closer to us here. Maybe to start closer to Zim and then kind of move out back to the GC. 2020 has been a tough year, my elder. A lot of unprecedented events that have taken place. What is the state of the financial health of the SID? People may be worried to say, do we still have a church? What is the state of our finances in our division as we come to the end of the year? If you can just let us know. I think you're on mute, my elder.
Thank you. I just want.
Okay, good.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you loud and clear. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for this opportunity you've given me to interact with your church members in Zimbabwe West Union Conference, and also just our brothers and sisters. And it's good to interact also with our leaders from the General Conference. That's the leaders that we have, and I've worked with them for so many years. Now, when we go to the question that you have posed, first of all, one thing that we need to say here is that the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division has experienced the impact, and is still experiencing the impact of the COVID-19. We have seen this, it has affected our members, and we all know we have some members that have lost jobs, some that have business closure. It hasn't spared the church at large, especially at the moment when the churches were closed because of the regulations that the government that had introduced. That had an impact in terms of the collection of the tithe and offerings. And that also went further even into our schools, the colleges, the universities, even the high schools. There was a reduction in terms of the student enrollment. So that affected our schools, our hospitals. When we looked at the 2020 September report, it was only 3 unions that were able to reach their financial goals. If you look at the hospitals, also the hospitals, there was a reduction in terms of the patients that were visiting the hospitals. So that reduced, because drastically finances depend on the income that comes from the patients that come in. Our publishing ministries, you talk about those, our literature evangelists, they were affected also. We saw a reduction in terms of the sales, so that was a problem. And then we had to introduce even an assistance that came from the GC, and we appreciate the GC that brought that helped each evangelist in our region. So in short, when you look at the impact of the COVID, this to me would be the second wave of the hit that hit the Southern Africa Indian Ocean Division. Because remember, Ora Masuku, we have faced issues in terms of the fluctuation of the currency, in terms of its power. That one was impacted the division, and also, of course, the blocked currency in terms of accessing certain funds that we have in various unions. So that dwindled the operation of the division. For those that love statistics, if I can give you just a summary on that area, in terms of the budget, we are looking at the projection of a reduction of 28% on the offerings and a reduction of 15.4% in terms of tithe. Comparatively, if we look at what we had last year, 2019, there's a reduction of offerings 36% in terms of the actual. Then, of course, reduction on the tithe, which is about 15%. But then we had to find other ways of operating and find different ways of operating as a division, which is very different. And that's what the global world is doing. In the meetings, we had to introduce the technology, and that helped us, and finding ways of still reaching out there and becoming effective and efficient in our operation and still achieving the goals that we had planned. All in all, what I would say is that the Lord is in charge of this church in our division. We have seen miracles. We have seen the Lord leading us, and He will continue leading us in future, just like what He has done when we faced the challenges of the fluctuation of the currency and the blocked currency. Thank you.
Elder, thank you so much. I think your last line is what redeemed everything that you said, to say we have no reason to fear, especially as we reflect on where we are coming from. But I think it is fair to say these are not changes that we can ignore. We really need to take what you are saying and see what it means for each of the entities, to see what it means in terms of adjusting our plans for the future, our spending, and really making sure we are aware of our own environment and not really operate in a silo. Now, we are in Zimbabwe, where for the most part, we are not actually able to repatriate or rather transfer any funds that are due to the SID or the General Conference. People were asking, I think it was in the last discussion, people were interested to know what that means for the General Conference and the SID in terms of how, what is happening to the funds that are due to you from our territory. And indeed, I think you mentioned other territories. I know Angola may be in a similar situation. Can you just shed some light on what that means? And you mentioned the word blocked currencies. Maybe just also shed some light what that means.
Well, I think maybe the first thing that we would say is, for those that may not understand what a blocked currency is all about, it's simply you cannot convert freely your local currency to other currencies. You can only use it for domestic use. And this is a situation that we are facing, not only in Zimbabwe, but Angola also is facing the same situation. We had previously Zimbabwe and Angola, one of the major contributors of the global mission programs that we had as a church. But because of the environment and things that are beyond their control, we can't access those funds. So we had to find other ways of utilizing those funds by introducing local projects. This, we collaborated with the union. That's what we did. So there are different programs that they introduced in terms of infrastructure, improving on the infrastructure and coming up with new institutions. Then, of course, Solusi University. We all know Solusi University has been there for a long time. They wanted to come up with what they call the turnaround strategy. We provided funds for that. And then we still continue supporting programs that we have currently in the three unions. I'll talk about the insurance program, the Advanced Risk Management Premium. That's managed from the General Conference. That one, we are funding it with the local funds. And of course, we introduced other programs. You mentioned the times when the SID visits Zimbabwe. We had programs that we had to run in Zimbabwe to make sure that we can utilize those funds. Then we've got a team of auditing service. That's the General Conference Auditing Service. Local teams that are in Zimbabwe, those are funded by the local funds that we have there. Then, of course, the appropriations. So we had to find ways of doing that because there's no way we can just leave those funds there, or else we'll just lose it as we are watching without doing anything, which won't be proper stewardship.
Okay, no, I think that helps, and I'm hoping some of the people who raised that question are following us today. Maybe let me move to Elder Egwakwe. Elder Egwakwe, by the way, is a native of Nigeria, but has worked globally. I know in Asia and certainly in the US and other. I think there's a bit of feedback there, my elder. Maybe when I keep quiet, it won't be too bad. Okay, yes. But what I wanted to say was can you maybe give us a bit of a picture, because we on this platform we already have 2 associate treasurers of the GC. Maybe just give us a quick picture of how many associate treasurers we have and maybe how the functions are distributed at the GC, just to get a bit of a broad picture of what takes place.
Thank you very much, Brother Masuku and colleagues. Good morning from the United States. Let me also begin by thanking Sister Charlene for that innovative way of remitting funds to the conference upward to the rest of the world. To me, during this pandemic, it has been a challenging time. And I will come back to that probably during the course of our discussion. However, with the Treasury, we have about 6 of us. We are led by a renowned, experienced leader, one Preston. He has the general oversight of the Treasury. And we have Ray Wallin. Ray is the under treasurer and is in charge of budgets and accounting. So he gives reports during annual council. You have the Timaka here, is in charge of investment. And I would like to chip in here straight away that apart from the highlights I'm going to give on each, they do other things that are not directly associated to their primary function. But because of the nature of each one of us, we are assigned to different other responsibilities. So Timaka is the one in charge of investment of church funds at the General Conference. We have a gentleman called Herman Lust. He's in charge of missionaries that go out everywhere in the world, making sure that they stay longer, and he is in charge of the finances dealing with that aspect. I also have, you may know her, Orion Daisy, is the corporate secretary of the General Conference. He takes care of all the minutes of the corporation and make sure that they are up to date and they are kept up to date. Of course, we also have myself. I've been working there for almost 15 years now. I'm in charge of the plant fund purchasing as well as General Conference session. Now, in all this, it's not just done by one person, it's a team. We have people that we supervise to make things happen for the church. So there we are. Thank you.
Okay, let me maybe ask you to mute that mic, Elder Egwakwe. Okay, that's great. Yes, I think when I speak, it feeds back. I think that helps to give us a good picture of the setup there. But I think the other thing that you did mention that is on everybody's mind, that is on your plate, Elder Egwakwe, is the General Conference session, which if all had gone according to plan, we would have gone through it by now. Maybe let me get to that in a second. I'm seeing a question here that relates to something that Elder Muchula spoke about. Just to assure Tino that we'll get to that question. For now, we've seen your question, we'll get to it. So back to Elder Egwakwe. The General Conference session did not take place this year, and presently, I know tentatively it's expected to take place next year, in May tentatively, but maybe we can get it from the horse's mouth. What's the current status on that? And we're looking at a second wave of the COVID pandemic coming up. What does this all mean for the GC session?
Again, thank you so much. Listen, nobody knows what is going to happen.
Wow.
To be frank with you. We do not know. But we are prepared as if this meeting is going to be held in May. The General Conference officers are working closely with the division officers for them to give us a feedback if, in light of this COVID-19, they are willing to come or not.
Okay.
To give us a feedback by December 10.
Oh.
And we will not do an evaluation. If they want to hold it, we also have to look at what is happening in Indianapolis. At the moment, just last week, the positivity rate was close to 12%. When I say positivity rate, I'm talking of COVID infections. Just imagine you bring about 6,000 people to an event with that high level of infection. You know that's going to be serious. Thank God there's a vaccine. Now, this vaccine, we have been told, if they start giving it out, US alone, it might take them to around September. Remember, you have to take care of your own people before you give to the rest of the world. So if they do the vaccination here in the US till end of September next year, the world will probably be the second vaccination target. So right now, if you ask my personal opinion, it looks very unlikely. But that's just personal. Don't hold me responsible for that. But I tell you, it is a big challenge. Maybe some miracle may happen that all these vaccines can be produced, and by May we are going to hold a meeting. But again, the decision must come from the divisions. Okay. Because, you know, this is our session, and we don't want to do anything like self-serving. So that's where we are at the moment. But we know by January, I think that is 7, by the 10 or 12, let's say January 12th latest, we'll know exactly whether we are going to hold it or not. So that is the date. So ask me January 15, I'll be able to tell you if it's not hard. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Elder Egwakwe. I think that does give us a picture, albeit not as you mentioned. I think there's a high degree of uncertainty based on what is transpiring, and I can see that things are changing on a daily basis. So it's really a tough assignment. But one thing that we have learned about the GC, and admired, by the way, is the ability to plan well in advance. I know if we had a session this past year, you would have been able to tell us where the next one is going to be and possibly where the one after that is going to be. Can you speak to how you achieve that level of planning at the GC? Because the challenges we see at the local church or conferences and things like that, or even the unions and the divisions in some cases, is the inability to plan beyond just one cycle, one quinquennium or one triennium, and we don't really achieve big things because our long-term planning is not that great. Can you tell us how you've been able to achieve that level of long-term planning repeatedly and with success?
That's a very good question, and thank you so much. Listen, it takes 9 years from the time we choose a location until the event is held. In other words, if we were to hold a GC session this year, at the annual council, which is normally the October, November this year, they will set up what we call a search committee, site search committee. Probably about 6 or 7 of us. We have to go around the US, look for possible cities that can accommodate us. And there are not very many. So we have to visit these cities. We see, okay, do they have the hotels? Do they have the halls? What about the airport that can move people in and out of the city? Is the city, what is the crime rate of that city? So you look at all these variables. And of course, we look at the cost implication. Is it an expensive city or is not too expensive? All this we put together, then we decide on the city where the meeting is going to be held. We will now present a recommendation to the annual council, and they will not decide, vote on it. In most cases, we give them 2 cities. Within the in-house, we also slug it out. There could be 3 cities to make presentation. Then, of course, they make a decision, make a recommendation to the annual council, and from them, they make the final decision. Now, talk about the organization. It's quite laborious. I work with 32 subcommittees of the General Conference.
Sure.
It's a teamwork. Each subcommittee has a chair, and they choose their own secretary. We have a clear terms of reference for each committee. They meet, but we coordinate. About 4 people working with me on this project. I thank God that these people are experienced and they have been doing it for almost 20 years. So one thing about General Conference session is that it takes a cycle to know what is happening. You jump into it, you say, no, I'm going to pull it out. No. It takes 5 years to complete a cycle and you know what is involved. So if you come from outside, like when I came in 2005, I was not like a dummy. So whatever they want, whatever I decided, I follow them because you have not completed the cycle. So it's not so that department alone, is that you have to have people in place, you train them. Because it will take them at least 5 years to know what is going on there. Now, as I told you, for example, Sherry works very closely with me. We have a young lady called Sekalo. He has been working with us 3 years now because we intend to retire. And even when we retire, one of my colleagues will still be working with her to pull out the 2025 GC session. It's so complicated that we need to have a good transition and succession plan in place when we are doing that. Now, let me tell you the areas that some of us will get nervous, when the session is taking place. Remember, you can plan everything. You have everything dotted. You know you are going to hold an event. But an event is not an event until the delegates start coming. It's when they get to the place, stay in the hotel, get to their rooms, registration is done, and there is no emergency, no mess up, that you know that 50% of job is already done. Registration is very important, because once people are frustrated, because it's jet lag. When they come, they're jet lag. And if they don't know where to go, that builds up. They feel that they are not properly taken care of. And this might look insignificant to you, but for me, it's very important. If the meals are bad, if the meal you serve your delegates are bad, you are finished. Adventists like good food. They like to eat familiar food. So if you give them something they don't like, 1, 2, or 3 days, forget it, you have lost it. If you remember, in 2015, we came up with an innovative idea where we asked the divisions to tell us what food they like. And based on that, we prepare a menu representing fairly the World Church. So in 2015, that's the first time we had it. And that's the first time we also served one meal, because we found out that 44% were the number of delegates that took their food. 56% of the delegates did not eat. So, which is a wastage of resources. So that is why we moved from 2 meals to 1 meal. And that worked very well. Everybody was happy. I didn't hear much complaint as we have had in the past. So GC session planning is quite a heavy job. Delegate, and make sure that the needs of the people are served. They're not sure. That's how it works.
Okay, great. Yeah, no, it's so my takeaway is there. It's long-term planning, succession planning, having teams that don't change where the turnover is low, and getting maybe intelligence in place over a number of years. And again, I think the teams, coordinating 32 committees or subcommittees, I think that also takes a great degree of being organized. So thanks for those insights into the inner workings of how that works. Elder Aka, you're the Director of Investments. Maybe if you can just unpack what that really means. What does your department actually do with investments, especially in the context of the church? And maybe while you are answering that, Elder Muchula, maybe you can be thinking about answering this question. I think in your earlier discussion, you made reference to a mention of infrastructure. I can also assist in answering this when the time comes, but just so that you're aware. Elder Aka, investments. Tell us what you do.
Sure. Well, first of all, Brother Masuk, thank you for having me on here. It's a privilege and an honor to be on the show. And just to share a little bit about what we do in the investment office. So a lot of it has to do with really helping our church all around the world manage their funds and their budgets and so on, making sure that the global church can continue to operate with sufficient funds. You know, the church works, the General Conference really is a mechanism where we're moving funds from parts of the world that have resources to those areas that need resources. And so, you know, one of the biggest things that we do is try to facilitate that. And certainly, you know, with the short-term liquidity and so on, being able to move money from around the world, from one location to another. Now, a lot of what we do, you could actually go to a commercial bank or some investment company and have that, same kind of investments done. So, from that perspective, like I said, you can just go to a local bank and have that done. But the thing that I think makes us effective is that we really integrate with the accounting systems of the church. Not only do we manage money, but we could move money by just certainly using sort of internal credits and debits. So we really integrate the movement of money from the banking system and to our internal accounting systems and make it very easy and facilitate money moving around the world. And particularly these days, it's becoming a lot harder to move money around the world. There's a lot stricter regulations around money laundering and terrorist financing and things like that. And they're very, banks are really clamping down on movement of money. They want to know where every dollar is going. And so one of the things that we really have to do is be very careful about how we move the money around and all the disclosure, the transparency of what we do. But again, being able to have multiple ways of moving money around the world is also very important as well. So we have, we've got sort of bank accounts and pockets of money in different parts of the world, but also being able to, integrate with the accounting and the business functions of the different divisional offices. That allows us to move money very quickly. So that's sort of on the short end of the system or of the funds. Sort of in the medium and longer term funds, we certainly have investments that can be accessed by all of our church investors, particularly those outside of the United States. They're able to efficiently invest in the U.S. Treasury market. And the U.S. Treasury market is really the largest, most liquid and safest investment vehicles in the world. U.S. government Treasury notes. And so we're really trying to allow access to all of our world investors, our church entities around the world, to be able to access that market very efficiently, and then move it between short-term and long-term funds, very efficiently, so that again, when you need the money, it's there. When you don't need the money, we can invest it, keep it safe, stay ahead of inflation, things like that. And again, just being good stewards of the Lord's funds.
And maybe we need to give you elders your roses while you're still around. I can safely say, with respect to the service we receive from your office, Elder Aka, with respect to some of the transactions that we do, it's your team goes beyond the call of duty. So we really want to appreciate that, and the same applies to Elder Egwakwe. The whole process of the GC session as well has been made so much easier because of what we see on our end as well. It makes it so much easier to plug in to a system that works well. So allow me to give you your roses as opposed to speak about you after you're gone. So thank you so much for that. Elder Aka, there's you mentioned the and Elder Muchula will know. I mean, it's difficult to move money in and out of places like South Africa with all the regulations and obviously other places as well. So there's the other side of it to say, do you have a mechanism that can ensure that the investments that the church is involved in are kosher? Are they using clean? Are we investing in the? Okay. Is there a way of making sure we're not making questionable investments?
Yeah, sure. I think that there's a number of facets to that question, right? So right now, there's a lot of organizations, religious organizations, just like ourselves, who won't invest in things that are questionable, whether it be alcohol, tobacco products, and so on. And it's not just, and it used to be mostly sort of religious organizations, but today there's a lot of what we might call ethical funds, or they're calling ESG funds, environmental, societal, and governance funds, that are looking at ways to invest that are ethical, that are clean, and so on. And so, we're certainly not alone in that, and that's becoming much more prevalent in the marketplace. And so from that perspective, we certainly are trying to keep up with all of the the different ethical considerations of making sure that we're investing well. But that's, and so it's obviously easy when you're looking at areas like tobacco or alcohol or things like that, but when it starts to get into other areas like green energy, environment, governance issues, and those kinds of things, that's certainly a little bit more gray, and it's a little bit more nuanced when we look at those kinds of things. And then, even looking at overall, I think one of the questions you have is, should we be investing in the stock market, and questions like that. I think those are broader questions that we try to address and understand what's happening in the market, and making sure that whatever we're doing is appropriate for the type of use of the funds, and also the intended purpose for which people are keeping their money at the general conference as well. So there's like I said, it's sort of multifaceted issues. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have today probably is that we don't know, and certainly with the pandemic and all the things that are going on, but even before the pandemic, we've noticed that the global economy is not quite what it used to be. And certainly, from our Adventist perspective, we are getting closer and closer to the end of times. And so, where we used to have perhaps a much longer view of investing in long-term funds, what do we do if we start to believe in our hearts that we are getting closer to the end of time? How do we manage through that? And you cannot go to the investment house across the street and get that kind of advice, right? Because they don't believe those kinds of things. And so I think that's one of the important things that we're trying to do, is really consider from an Adventist perspective, as we think about the end times. If you're talking about pension funds and so on, those are long-term monies. I hope that I never need to use my pension plan, because the Lord will be here long before then, right? And so with like pension plans, you can invest those for a long time. If the world does last for another 20, 30, 50 years, 100 years, then the money will be there. If the Lord comes back in 5 years, then we don't need our pension plans, right? So with the pension plans, we're going to invest as if the world is going to continue for the next 50 years. But when it comes to our operating funds, our shorter term, medium term funds, we really need to be a little bit more cognizant of what we think is going on in the world from an Adventist perspective and from our faith perspective, and trying to integrate that with how we manage our money. And again, you're not going to get that advice from the folks across the street at your local bank or investment company. And so I think that's part of maybe some of the most important things that we can do right now. I know we have investment committee. We meet on a quarterly basis. We had a great discussion with some of our leaders around, what does it mean to invest in these end times? And so I think that to me is really one of the most pertinent questions when you're talking about investing. And when you say questionable investments, it's not so much a questionable investments, but really putting in perspective of what we believe.
Wow, that is amazing, because I think it's one thing to talk about investments broadly, but it's another when we actually marry that with what we actually believe, and to begin to see us putting our money in a manner that actually shows that we believe in the soon coming. I think that's definitely a topic for another day. I think you will be back to discuss that. There are a lot of questions that are coming in around investments in terms of I think the one that I'd asked you earlier. There's one that says, as greetings, is it possible as a local church to invest in properties, or as church to have farm run by the local church? I think this one is really, it's an indictment on us at the union and the conference level. We should be also providing this kind of information, because certainly I don't know what you have to say, but I was in Australia last year, and I know a local church that owns property worth in the millions, 4 million Australian dollars they were selling. So certainly there is that level of investment taking place at the local church, but maybe you can also respond to that. And as you think about responding to that, maybe there's also, you can be thinking about responding to this question. Is there a way this idea of investment by the church can be taught and encouraged to be done by the local church as well? So a lot of these questions seem to want this level of understanding to come down to the local church. Anything you want to say about that before we move away from the topic?
Sure. I think one of the key things right now that as you think about sort of investing, and if we are truly in the end times, one of the things that's really, really important is the length of time that you're investing for, and the liquidity of those assets and the quality of those assets, right? And so if you're talking about sort of operating funds, the money that the church needs or will need in the next year or two or three, you've got to make sure that those are very liquid. Liquid meaning you can turn it into cash, so you can pay your employees, or pay your rent, keep your lights on, those kinds of things. I think that's very, really important. And then making sure that they're kept safe in high quality, whether it's investments or at a bank or so on. So I think those are really important. If you do have some excess funds, I don't see why you wouldn't think about doing some projects, at your local church or conference that are productive. Whether it's a farm or some other kind of operations. I know business in the end times is going to be very, very important. If you read the Spirit of Prophecy, it tells you that that those kinds of business endeavors are very, very critical for us. But you have to make sure that you're providing for the ongoing operations of the church. And I know George has been involved in sort of revisiting some of the ways that we look at our accounting procedures and so on, to make sure that we have a good view of how we invest, how much reserves we keep on hand, and making sure that that's appropriate, so that we want to balance between being able to run the church efficiently on a short-term basis, but also having good long-term projects that will provide for either funds for the church or for mission opportunities and so on.
Thank you for that. No, those are some great insights. Maybe Elder Muchula, let me jump back to you just so that we can respond to
Edda, I'd like to add on that, on church investment, local church investment. If you
please proceed.
If you will. Okay, listen. Let's be very clear on this. The tithes, the mission offerings, and the Sabbath school cannot be invested by the local church. That is the money that is sent straight to the conference and our transmission based on policy. If the local church has money other than those three areas that I have mentioned, there's nothing wrong in going into land, because that is a visionary church. They can acquire land. Now, when it comes to investment, if you go into the stock market, be very careful. The first thing you do, Mr. Treasurer, is that refer them to the policies. The policy does not allow evil conferences to go into stock market. So I don't know about your division. Generally, all those funds can be invested with the general conference can do that for you, because of the risk involved. However, if a division wants to go into that, not union, division wants to go into that, the policy, as I can recall, they have to write to the GC and make sure that they have the technical experience, the financial experience to go into stock market. Other than that, they can go into treasury bill, certificate of deposit, and those kind of more stable financial instruments. So for a local church, if they want to go into, they have SS funds other than those that I've mentioned, yes, they can go into buying land, buy church building. And if I don't know what to do in Zimbabwe, but remember that in most cases, the title to those properties are being held at the conference level.
Union in our case.
Union, okay, because probably a countrywide then. That is good. That's fine. So keep that in mind. Don't invest money that does not belong to you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that addition, Elder Egwakwe. Our last session last week is still on the platforms. You can look at that. Our local CFOs discussed that in great detail as to what you can use tithe for, what you can use offerings for. So make reference to that, and it's very important for our viewers to hear it reinforced by someone at the GC to show that we are consistent as far as that's concerned. Maybe I see our time is running out. Let me just give Elder Muchula, if you can just quickly respond to that question earlier on about, I think Tino just basically wanted to know what has been done in terms of infrastructure. Maybe to cut it short, the division I know has sent, lent some of our unions funds to purchase offices and certain fixed assets. And I'm sure that's what you were referring to. And if that's the case, then that's fine. We can respond.
Okay, let me just add, I can add just a bit on that one. The Zimbabwe East Union Conference that embarked on a project of building a college. They call it ZWUC College. And then we have also a project that is going on right now for the Zimbabwe Central Union. They're coming up with the Teachers Training College. So those are infrastructure that I was talking about in terms of utilization of those local funds. And of course, what you have mentioned right now. Or what I can say is that the money may not be enough because those are huge projects, but it's a contribution towards that than just leaving the local funds sitting. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for that contribution. There was another question, Elder Egwakwe, about, it's on the screen now, talking about GC sessions. Are we going to have them hosted elsewhere outside the USA? I remember one in the Netherlands. I think that was around about 95, if I'm not mistaken. But maybe you can add more light to that question.
That, as I said earlier, even in the United States, it's difficult to have some cities. I think the last time we counted, there are about 5 cities in the US that can accommodate us. The one you referred to was in Utrecht. And that was, I think, 1995, as you rightly said. If you remember, we have to take a train to go to that World Trade Center. And remember, it's a trade center with hard surface. Some of us have to buy a bubble mattress and sleep on that. Most especially those people who came from Russia. It wasn't the best at all, and it was very, very expensive. Now, why are we sticking to US most of the time? The reason is this: you have to look for a country that can easily give us a visa to come to the place too. Okay, the whole continent of Africa, that's where I come from. We have not seen a place that can accommodate, that can hold our events, give visas to us. Remember, I'm talking about $6,000-7,000. That is just the delegates and their spouses, not the rest of the world that will come over. as far as I can recollect, since I've been working in the church, we had an annual council in Kenya, Nairobi, some years back. That was quite a successful one. But you find out that the hotels are not closer to the convention area. You have to use busing system here, and that will slow down the program. So we are looking at other places, but we have not found one. Recently, they said we should go to Melbourne, that is in Australia. Now, Melbourne is another different one. It's about 16, 17 hours if you are flying from South America. So it's not an easy trip going to a place and feel that we have a successful one. But we are looking. I'm open if there are some cities you think or anywhere in the world that we can hold it and it's cheaper and easy access to the country in terms of be generous in giving visas to our delegates. No problem. I'm open.
Thank you for that answer. What we've done is we've just posted a comment on the. Okay, it looks like it has split into three. It's a past question. It says, now I can't actually. Okay, it says, thank you for this program. It's shedding light on how organized our system is in terms of handling finances. My concern goes to the collecting of these finances. Do we, as a system, have ways which seek to find how our members get their money so that we avoid the ministry being financed by money obtained contrary to our beliefs, so we just accept everything and hope the blood that cleanses will cleanse to the utmost? So that was Mtabisi Dube at our last during our last episode. Our time is flying out, but does anyone want to quickly comment about that?
If I may, Tim, you want to go ahead? Tim, do I go ahead? Okay, you want to go ahead, Tim?
Okay, sure. So I think there's a couple of biblical points that we should probably think about, right? And when Jesus back in the book of Matthew talked about, he talked about some of the Pharisees and so on giving. He used to say, that if people did it for show, that they've received their reward, right? Because if that's what they really wanted, that's all they're going to get. The Father is not going to reward them for the money that they were giving because they only did it for show. If that's what people are doing, they're giving money because they want to show, they want to seem like they're doing a good thing. Jesus said, "Hey, you've already received your reward, which is notoriety from people, and that the Father is not going to reward you." Now, having said that, Jesus doesn't say that money shouldn't be taken in. He says that a number of times about, you've received your reward. So I don't know that we should necessarily be the judge. The Father is the judge. He's going to judge and give the reward accordingly. But if people want to give money to the church, we should accept that, because we don't know people's hearts. We don't know why they are giving, and God did not set us to be judges in those type of circumstances. And certainly, if I guess the other side of things is, if we believe that there is really corruption, and we have firsthand knowledge of such information, then we ought to go to the authorities and report them. But if we don't, if it's all just rumor mongering and assumptions and innuendos, which seems to be going around a lot these days, if you don't have firsthand knowledge about it, then we ought to, again, follow the biblical principle and not spread rumors like that about people which we don't really know for sure or that are facts. So I'd offer those two items from the Bible.
Okay, thanks for that. And Elder Egwakwe, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. If you know that the source of that fund is fraudulent, the church should not accept the gift. Matthew chapter 27, verse 6. Remember when Judas wanted to return the 30 pieces, he brought it to the temple. The priest said, that money does not belong to the treasury. So, in addition to what Tim has said, if it's a mere rumor, mere jealousy, don't judge the individual. If it is clear that that person is getting money fraudulently, then the pastor should have, remember this is at the local church level. The pastor should work with the member discreetly and let him know, yeah, we like the funds, but if it's fraudulent, we will not take it. This is very important. I know it's difficult, but it's clear. The Bible says you pay or you return what you earn. That's the principle. It's what you sweat, what you work for. But if you're an armed robber, either by gun or by pen, you have not earned that money. Okay? So I know probably all over the whole world, we have the same challenge. In my country too, we have some politicians. We know how much they earn, but what they give might be more than what they earn. All right? But not talk because we give them the big seat. They sit down there, recognize them, but we know that all is not well. But we have to be very careful that it's very dicey. But I think one has to stand for what is right. I don't think personally that any money that is fraudulent in any way, we should gladly welcome it. That's my position.
Fantastic.
Yes,
thank you so much. Oh, Elder, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, just a
our
brief
our time is up, so yours will be the last comment. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think I'm glad the elders have a balance in terms of the diciness of the situation and also the issue of saying that really, if it's clear that it's fraudulent, then you don't take. Because, if you check in the Bible, and I just want, when we leave, probably our members should also read the story that is in Luke chapter 7, verse 37 to 39, and also 44 to 48. It's a very famous story that talks about Jesus' encounter with Mary, a well-known harlot, and how it ended. Because this woman who lived in this town, she lived a sinful life, and she learned that Jesus was coming, and what she did exactly, we all know that story where she kissed the feet of Jesus, and then Jesus asked the question to Simon. These are things that it's practical questions that we need to look at. And of course, if it's something that you're just making an assumption, that becomes wrong for sure. And I like the part of 44, verse 44, where Jesus said, then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, do you see this woman? I came into your house. You did not give me any water for my feet, but she wet my feet with her tears and wiped them with her hair. You did not give me a kiss, but this woman from the time I entered has not stopped kissing my feet. So you did not put oil on my feet, but has poured perfume on my feet. Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has forgiven little love, then little loves little. Then Jesus said, your sins are forgiven. So sometimes we need to look at some of these things positive and find a way of helping our brothers than just shunning and looking at the negative part. Let's have a balance in terms of how we look at it. For sure, if we look at the situation, how are we going to be following up everybody? How are you going to find that? It's the Lord to judge. Thank you so much.
I think just from the last three contributions, that's a discussion for another day, certainly. But I think we got enough principles that we can use to use, value judgments and certainly with a lot of prayer and counsel, because everybody is still around. We can look at these things and assist each other so that our church is not brought into disrepute. At this stage, we've run out of time. We've actually gone over our time. Someone, when they saw that this was just for an hour, he actually asked me, "Are you sure you're going to be able to contain these discussions within the hour?" And they've proven me right, or proven me wrong, rather, whichever. But thank you so much, elders. I can assure you that we hope to have you back at some stage, and certainly shed more light. The wisdom was palpable. We appreciate, and we feel that maybe we have not been utilizing you enough, but thank God for COVID. You have become this accessible. We praise God for lemonade coming out of the lemons that we've received in 2020. With that, let me not waste any more time. There's some comments. Someone just some appreciation, and someone is saying we do need a discussion on how we raise our money, which confirms what I was saying earlier on. And with that, elders, if you can, don't disappear, just so that we can have a prayer once we're done. But for now, for everybody else, thank you for watching. Do join us. I think our next one is actually in 3 weeks from now, on the 18th, because of the Christmas period. Don't miss it. We'll be speaking to our good friends from Down Under, the CFO of the South Pacific Division, the CEO of Sanitarium, our entity that produces a lot of good stuff, Weetabix, So Good, soy milk, and other products, and also the stewardship director from that division. That should be a good discussion. Don't miss it. But today, have a happy Sabbath. And elders, I hope you'll still have time to sleep a little bit before you go to church. Take care, and God bless you all. Amen.